I'd like to thank you for watching this walk through Romans. My name is Leon DeHaan, and we are presenting a teaching verse by verse through the book of Romans. Today we're in Romans, the 8th chapter, starting with verse number 35. Let me just say this. If you haven't been watching, go back and watch the prior videos to this and get an understanding of what the Apostle Paul is saying. We keep and limit these to 8 to 9 minutes long, and we do that so that you can grab a nugget and just meditate on it and think about it as you go through your day, as you go through your night, whenever it is that you watch these videos. So will you do that for us, please? Romans, the 8th chapter, verse number 35. The Apostle Paul asks another question. He's constantly asking questions. And he's not asking questions to get our response. He's asking questions to make us think. Anytime that you see the Apostle Paul asking a question, whether it's in Romans or Galatians or Ephesians or whatever, you need to say, you know what, this is important. I need to sit down and take a look and figure this thing out. It's important. And so Paul asks questions because these are things that are vitally important to our spiritual life. And here in verse number 35, he asks this beautiful question. Who will be able to separate us from the love of God? Who? Again, there's that pronoun who. Who will be able to separate us from the love of God? Just think about that for a minute. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you've been separated from God's love? As a believer, you know what? If you feel that way, your feelings are lying to you. You know why? Because nothing can ever separate you from God's love. You see, you've loved God, going back to verse number 28. You have loved God. You have committed your life to God. You've given your life over to God. And you know what? He in turn has given you no condemnation, justification, a bunch of the things that we've talked about this week. But he has given you his love. This word love again is the Greek word agape. And it means a giving type of love, the giving of oneself. God has given you himself. He's given you his Son. Think about that. Who will separate us from the love of Christ? And then the Apostle Paul lists 7 things. We're going to take a look at each one of these 7 things very quickly. Well, tribulation. The word tribulation here is the Greek word chorizo. The Greek word separate is the Greek word chorizo. The word tribulation is the Greek word talipsis. And it means to crush. It means to press. It means to squeeze. Tribulation comes, but it will not separate us from the love of God. Maybe you're going through a time of squeezing. Maybe you're going through a time of pressure right now. Keep in mind that this pressure, that this time of tribulation is not going to separate you from the love of God. It can't do it. It doesn't have the ability to separate you from God's love. The next thing he says is will distress. What is distress? Well, it means a narrow territory or a strait. The word means a distress that arises from within. The word tribulation is the Greek word means something that's coming from the outside, pressing on you from the outside. The Greek word for distress means something that's coming up from the inside. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had feelings coming up from the inside? You ever had fear rising up on the inside of you? Have you ever had doubts rising up on the inside of you? Will they separate you from the love of God? No. No, they will not. You see, distresses rise up from the inside of us. We go through life and things happen and distress comes, but it will never be able to separate us from the love of God. The next thing, will persecution. Persecution. What is persecution? The word means to press you towards something. The word tribulation is a different Greek word. The word distress is a different Greek word. Here, the word persecution, it means to press you in a direction. You know, when persecution comes, you know why it comes? Persecution comes for you to leave God, for you to leave what you believe. And that's what the Apostle Paul is talking about. Persecution may come. I mean, you know, persecution is coming all around the world. It may come. But that pressing, that thing trying to press you away from your commitment to God will never separate you from God's love. And then he goes on, will famine. The word famine basically means to be in want of food. Will famine separate us from the love of God? No. You might be thinking, well, if I don't have anything to eat, where's the love of God? It's still there. He's still giving you Jesus. He's still giving you everything that you need for life. Will famine separate you from the love of God? No. Will nakedness? No. Nakedness means to be without the right clothes. Doesn't mean to be without clothes. It means to be without the right clothes. I mean, we know you have to have the right clothes to go to certain places. You know what? Not having the right clothes is not going to separate you from the love of God. Will peril? No. Peril is danger. Something moving. It's when you move towards danger. When you move towards danger, you know what the best place for you to go to? The love of God. Peril will not separate you from the love of God. Well, the sword. Here, the word sword is actually, it means a knife that's used for slaughter. Will a sword separate you when someone tries to slaughter you, maybe with their words, maybe even physically? Will it separate you from the love of God? How many of you know the Roman believers are under this thing of persecution, of the sword, of peril, of all of the nakedness and the famine? And God's love is right there constantly. And then the Apostle Paul quotes Psalms 44, verse 22. But for your sake we were killed all day long, and we are considered as sheep led to the slaughter. How many of you know that the Apostle Paul was going to experience this? The Roman believers were experiencing this. But you know what? It's not going to separate us from the love of God. David was prophesying persecution. Persecution's here. But you know what? God's love is here in the midst of persecution. Thank you for watching us this week. Join us again next week as we continue our study in the book of Romans.